What's up, everyone? My name is Isaiah Newsom, and this is episode 3 of the ZayNews Podcast, where we talk all things hoops, whether it's NBA, college ball, youth sports, you name it. If it's about basketball, we talk about it. So make sure you leave a comment if you have questions, and if you like the content that we're dropping, you make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are going to be dropping episodes weekly, sometimes twice a week, maybe more. If news is dropping, like what just dropped last night, I'll drop an episode every night. I really don't care. I love this stuff. I love talking about it, and I hope you guys like listening to it. So again, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll be making sure to bring more content to you on a regular basis. Now, without further ado, let's get into episode 3. And let's look no further than to the news that dropped on us like an atomic bomb just last night. And that is Luka Dončić being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis. Silence, right? Like, who would have thought? I know a lot of us have heard it by now, but who would have thought this was ever a thing? No one knew it was in the works. It was a complete toss out of left field, I think, for all of us, people in the media, fans, players, right? You saw players' reactions yesterday evening. A real head scratcher, right? I think one of the most shocking trades that we probably have heard of in the last decade plus, right? Like, I don't remember a trade, a free agency move, maybe LeBron going to Miami, KD signing with the Warriors. Obviously not the same because they're not trades, but like moves that were just gigantic and that really came out of left field. So it's right up there with, you know, the top of the heap when it comes to just blindside moves that are really going to just shift what the NBA looks like in years to come. You know what I'm saying? So very interesting. I want to make sure I get into all of that. To be honest with you, it seems like this keeps happening. I come up with a script for my podcast. I have 4 or 5 different topics that I want to talk about. You know, today the plan was to talk about all-star snubs, a few teams that are playing well. The Lakers just played amazing yesterday evening versus the Knicks, right? Probably the best defensive game that they've played all season, especially when you consider AD was not on the floor with them. But now, right, all the time's going to get spent with this, right? I crossed everything off the agenda, and I'm going to spend quite a bit of time just talking about this trade, right? What it means for the Lakers, what it means for the Mavs. Really want to get into what the Mavs' thought process may have been in making this trade, why I think it may work, the pros and cons of each for both teams, etc. So we're going to get into this very thoroughly. Again, if you have questions, make sure you leave a comment. I'm happy to get the questions for you guys. And lastly, again, just want to reiterate, make sure you like it and subscribe to the channel. So let's get into it. For starters, let's talk from the Dallas Mavericks perspective. We'll wait, actually. Let's backtrack. Let's go over the full trade, right? Not just Luka for AD, but every piece that was included in the trade, just so we come at this from a very understanding approach, right? And we have all our pieces laid out on the table for us. So the trade ended up being between 3 teams. Utah was included, I think, just to make the money work and all that sort of stuff. So for starters, the Lakers, they traded Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a first-round pick to the Mavs, who gave them in return Luka Dončić, obviously, but also Maxi Kleber and Markieff Morris. So that's what the Lakers got in return. And then the Utah Jazz got Jalen Hood-Schifino and 2 second-round picks. So that is the full trade when you consider all 3 teams that were a part of it. Now, again, want to get into this first and foremost from the Mavs perspective, right? And I really want to try to understand why they did it, what their thought process was, and if it makes sense for them moving forward. So for starters, I think what jumps out to me the most when I start to get into this, and this is me trying to not be a conspiracy theorist, right? We'll save the conspiracy theories, the what ifs, the maybes, the things that we don't have facts on for the end of the podcast. We can discuss that stuff briefly. But for now, I want to talk about things that make sense, right? Look at it from a realistic perspective, and that is the Mavericks are under new ownership. And I don't know very much about this new ownership group, but what I can imagine and what I've been able to decipher through Mark Cuban in interviews is that they're really trying to drive up the value of this thing and its ability to make profits within that Dallas area, right? He had alluded to teams starting to buy up property in and around their area, around the arena, right? And obviously, as a byproduct of that, you bring new businesses in. These businesses thrive when games are going on because you got people coming in, going out to eat before games, after games, buying stuff, buying merchandise, doing all sorts of entertainment type stuff. And this is something that he just said, Mark Cuban, me speaking on, was not necessarily privy to. And the new ownership group was, right? I think this new ownership group has a very large background and extensive background in developing commercial real estate, right? So the reason I think this is important is because clearly this new ownership group looks at this as an opportunity to make big bucks, right? And when you take on a new venture and when you buy a new business, there's a lot of upfront costs there, right? And in saying all this in a roundabout way, I'm trying to get to the point that Luka Dončić was going to be available or he was going to be able to sign for a $345 million Supermax this summer, right? So you buy a new team, you have all these investments that you're putting into place to build the real estate around where you guys play at, to just drive up your ability to maximize your cost during game days, all this sort of stuff, by selling all this stuff. But then you have a whole nother investment that you now have to make in a generational talent in Luka Dončić, which is that $345 million max extension that he was getting ready to sign. So from a business perspective, looking at it from Mavs ownership side, I'm thinking, right, a large part of this decision has to do with money, right? The Dallas, even though they're a great franchise, they are not in an extremely large market. And typically those lower to mid-sized franchises have to find ways to pinch pennies. Now, with that being said, do I think that's the right decision to make? No, right? I'm just trying to find reasoning behind why this decision was made, because Mavs GM Nico, he had alluded to some things as to why they made this change, right? And from his perspective, he tried to make it seem like this was wholly and only a basketball move, right? There was a few quotes that came out that said he wholeheartedly believes defense wins championships, and a few other things, right? And that's not to say that AD isn't, probably a top 10 player of his generation. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, right? Top 75 player of all time, all this sort of stuff, incredible. But he is 31, right? And the idea that you trade a guy who's been the best perimeter player in the NBA for at least the past 5 years, who is 6 or 7 years younger than Anthony Davis, even though Anthony Davis is a better defensive player by a long shot, right? Not even close. Luka Dončić, without playing defense, he had a great supporting cast, just took a team to the finals. The Mavs' only championship on their books is with their best player being a not good defender in Dirk Nowitzki, right? They built their franchise, and what Mark Cuban was able to build with Dallas, the reason he was able to sell it for what he was able to sell it for, was off the back of Dirk Nowitzki, who is not a good defender. So the idea that all of a sudden the Mavs are some organization that's going to, and I get it, Nico is a new GM, right? He wasn't around during Dirk's tenure, but that's not genuine, right? That's not real. Luka just went to the finals. He beat some of the best teams in the NBA in his route to get to the finals. Obviously, they ran into Boston, who was a force, who had so much depth. They had so many options on the defensive end of the floor. Just a very tough matchup for the Mavs ultimately. But if your explanation is that we believe defense can win championships and that AD is the better route moving forward for our franchise, I just think that's disingenuous. Wholeheartedly, I think that's disingenuous, and I don't think that tells any of the story, right? In large part, I believe what I alluded to earlier, in that, right, you have new ownership taken on a large undertaking when it comes to upfront cost of buying like I'm sure they had investors, all this sort of stuff. It's still a large upfront cost, right? And then you're talking about investing more into the real estate surrounding your arena so that you can drive cost up, price up for tickets, right? Getting people to spend more money, right? It's just like basic business 101 what they're doing, right? And I get it. But with that being said, you start adding player salaries, $345 million, plus the new CBA with all the rules and regulations that really limit teams and put a stranglehold on teams who have multiple stars. It becomes tricky, right? So be real about what it is my only point. Be real, right? I think this was a money move because if you're talking about the sustainability of your franchise moving forward, based on what Luka Dončić has produced since he's came into the league, 6-time first team All NBA. I think he's been in the league 7 seasons. The only time he didn't get it was his rookie year. Come on. Let's be real about this, right? And again, Anthony Davis, I think, like when you're talking about, let's get into the Mavericks, right? The basketball side of things, the Mavericks as a team. Anthony Davis is one of the most seamless fits that you have in the NBA, right? You have guys like KD, you guys have guys like Steph Curry. Anthony Davis fits that mold where you can plug him into any team, anywhere, at any time, and he is going to find a way to be extremely productive at a high level and help your ball club win games. So when you look at it from that perspective, AD is really going to help the Mavs in a lot of different ways. But is he a better player than Luka Dončić? This is coming from a Lakers fan. No, he's not. Is their ceiling higher, the Mavericks, with Anthony Davis as opposed to Luka Dončić? I don't believe that it is. Now, that's not to say that they're not, like, I don't think the drop-off is going to be major. I think Dallas has some really good pieces. They have some solid young talent and guys like Lively. Obviously, Kyrie has been a great leader for that team. I think he's a large part as to why they were able to make the finals last year. And I think AD and Kyrie together are going to be a great duo. Lively just got injured. He's going to be out for quite a while, but they still got Daniel Gafford. They still got Clay. They still got a lot of these good wing talents and guards who can put the ball in the hole. So honestly, I think in the short term, this is not a bad move for Dallas. It's a bad move because who Luka is, but like in terms of winning basketball games, I don't think it's going to greatly diminish their ability to win basketball games. I think that's a better way to put it. So the move does not make sense to me overall when you look at it, holistically. But I do think it doesn't change the Mavs' fortune in the short term all that much, right? So just as an example, if the Mavs were going to win 45 games with Luka this year, I don't think their ability to win 45 games now with AD changes too much. I don't think their ability to compete in the playoffs changes too much. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still think they're going to end up being what they were going to be in the short term, regardless. But where it gets iffy is that, like, AD is a guy who obviously plays so super hard, is a defensive backbone. So in his competitiveness and his drive and his the way he pushes himself, he's accumulated quite a few injuries, and he's 31. So your window of being elite with an elite talent at the helm, right? A guy who's going to be the face of your franchise for a long time, it just shortens drastically, right? Luka's 25. You could realistically see him playing at a high level for the next 10 years without a doubt. You know what I'm saying? Now there are questions to that, but he hasn't given us any reason to think, even when he's overweight, to think that he's not going to be productive, right? Because if you average 34 and apparently you're overweight, 8-8, maybe he does need to lose 30 pounds, but if he's doing that when he's overweight, what is that going to look like when he's not? You know what I'm saying? So we have to really put that into perspective. So summarizing what this does for the Mavericks from a basketball perspective, I don't think it changes their fortune too much in the short term from a winning perspective. I think it doesn't affect their chemistry greatly. I think their chemistry may even improve a little bit because AD is just that guy, right? AD is a guy who's going to fit seamlessly into any system. He is that good. He is that malleable. He is that skilled. And he does things that nobody else wants to do, right? Being the backbone of a defense, being able to guard 1 through 5, he is so elite, right? And I think he was vastly underappreciated during his tenure with the Lakers because of the injuries and stuff, and people only look at things on the surface. But man, when that guy was on the court for us, he was absolutely amazing. And it does hurt as a fan. Like when this trade first happened, the Lakers have to do it. You know what I'm saying? But it still it hurts, right? Because AD was just that dude for a minute. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I feel about it from the Mavericks perspective. From a basketball perspective, it just doesn't really make sense, right? But with me trying to look at the pros and cons at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think it vastly changed their fortunes in the short term, by any stretch of the imagination, right? Luka's been hurt in and out of the lineup. Even they were saying he was prepping to come back shortly after All-Star break. Even if he comes back after All-Star break, there's still probably a play-in team. Maybe they can squeeze, work their way up into the 6th seed if they start playing good basketball. But it seems like the teams who are now in the play-in aren't necessarily clicking the best. So the window's closing. You know what I'm saying? It's already February. It's going to be very hard for these teams to, if they don't change fast, to really do the work to pull themselves out of the playing game. So regardless of the trade or not, I think the Mavs' fortunes for this season were kind of written on the wall. Whether or not AD can, turn this team into a championship contender again, not just AD, right? But AD, being swapped for Luka can turn this team into a championship contender again. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I really don't know. I think that Dallas does have some really solid pieces there. They have a good roster with a lot of quality talent. Luka we can't overstate how good of a basketball player Luka Dončić is, how special he is on the offensive end of the floor. I don't think that can be overstated enough, right? So we shall see. We shall definitely see. Now, shifting gear, shifting focus, I want to now look at this from the Lakers' perspective. Because there's a lot of moving pieces, and I want to make sure I cover it all. So from the Lakers' perspective, my thought process is you have to do it, right? Like, you get the 25-year-old, a younger guy who is objectively, when healthy, a better basketball player than Anthony Davis is at this moment. If you were talking to me about like 2020 Anthony Davis, who was 27, 26, 27, the guy who we just traded for coming out of New Orleans, you're talking about a completely different thing. But at this stage of their careers, AD is 31. He has accumulated quite a few injuries over the course of the last few years, and it's not a bad thing, right? It's out of him being a hard competitor, right? And it's just the nature of being a 6'11" guy who moves the way he does, who's as athletic as he is. It's the nature of the game, you know what I'm saying? So he shouldn't be held, he shouldn't be diminished, which a lot of people do because of that. But in saying that, right, I'm getting sidetracked. So the Lakers had to make this move, right? You get the 25-year-old guy, you trade your 31-year-old guy who has been a staple in your franchise, but you get the 25-year-old guy who, when healthy, is the better basketball player, right? As simply put as we can make it, as the Lakers, you have to make that trade, right? And it's not like Dallas came at them asking for everything, you know what I'm saying? Asking them to back, bring in the treasure chest and fill their pockets and get greedy and, ask for Max Christie along with Connect, along with both their first round picks, and really just, clean the Lakers out for this, trade. And even then the Lakers probably would have had to consider it. But really for AD a first and Max Christie while you're getting back Luka Dončić, Maxi Kleber, who's been injured, but over the past 2 seasons I'm talking about with Maxi Kleber, who's been injured, but when he's healthy is a versatile defender who can guard bigs, who can stretch the floor, who I think is a good piece and a good addition to this team, which I'm glad he was included in this trade. My point is, you just have to make this trade. Like Rob Pelinka, it would have been, malpractice. It would have been basketball malpractice to say no to this. You have to do it. Now, we can feel, our feelings can be one way, but in terms of just from a pure basketball perspective, you have to do it, right? There's no other option. You can't say no to this trade. As much as we like Anthony Davis, as much as I think, if I'm being honest, this may end up punting this season in terms of our championship chances, right? Because now we're making a lot of changes with a short amount of time. Once we get past the trade deadline, once we get past All-Star break, there's a very finite amount of time that we have to galvanize this group, to figure out lineups, situationals, to get these guys to mesh and gel together before the playoffs, and then put our best foot forward, right? Like, there's a lot of moving pieces there. And the Lakers, if you've been watching over the past, 3 weeks, have just now started to click more consistently, right? Like, you could see they were setting themselves up to really make a push post All-Star break to play their best basketball going into the playoffs, right? And that's not to say that this team still can't compete. I think the Lakers will still be a playoff team, obviously, and they'll still be a tough out in the playoffs, but chemistry is so important. And I think with how wide open the West has been this year, and how unpredictable a lot of teams have played, right? Like, there hasn't been a ton of consistency outside of like the top 3 teams, right? And even Memphis, hit or miss, occasionally they've won a lot of games, but they're young and they compete hard, right? Like the West was still pretty open. Now, I think OKC has to be your favorites, but besides the point, right? Like, the West was open. I think if the Lakers had all their ducks in a row, let's say they did make a trade for a center, instead of making this large blockbuster trade, and allow AD to play the 4 more. Plus, we got Jared Vanderbilt, Dorian Finney-Smith in the lineup, Max Christie, 3 elite defenders. You throw Gabe Vincent in there, right? Like, the Lakers were really starting to find an identity on the defensive end of the floor. Offensively, LeBron was able to start to find his groove a little bit more because he's not being asked to defend as much, right? So he can just focus on the things that a 40-year-old should be focused on, right? And that's the things where he can be his best at. So the Lakers were in a really good spot, man. I was thinking that we were going to get to about 10 games over 500, be able to coast for the remainder of the season, really just work through some of those things that we need to work through and head into the playoffs in a great place. And Rob Pelinka and Nico had a different plan. So back to the Lakers and just kind of how I feel for the rest of the season. My initial thought was that they may have punted their chances of contending for a championship this season. Luka's such a good player that you can't say that for certain, and we still have very good defensive pieces that if we are able to get some sort of rim running, rim protecting big, that we could still find a way. I just know personally how important chemistry is, and I am unsure if we'll have enough time, especially when you're talking about, if you look at our roster makeup now, we got LeBron, Luka, Austin Reeves. LeBron and Reeves can both play off the ball. That's not where neither of them are best at. You know what I'm saying? LeBron, for all of his positives, right? And he does play off the ball. Let's not get it twisted, right? He can play off the ball. He does play off the ball. But even at 40 years old, I think he still really likes to have the ball in his hands, and that's okay. He's been playing like that for 22 seasons now, right? Like you get it, and I mean probably more like 25 when you think about the way he played in high school. So you get it. So I think they will be able to adapt. You know, they're all smart enough basketball players to adapt. But that has yet to be, you know, that remains to be seen, and we'll have to just see how that goes, you know, over the coming weeks. But what I would like to see, and this is just kind of a personal preference of mine, is that hopefully JJ Redick can get Luka off the ball a little bit more. Listen, I know Luka is amazing with the ball in his hands, right? But when you're talking about making deep playoff runs, when you're talking about winning championships, it seems like when your offense is too predictable and you're just standing and watching guys, not only does it make it hard to get as much buy-in from guys on the team, right? Because guys want to have, like, everybody wants to touch the ball. It's the nature of the game. Everybody wants to be included. Everyone wants to be a part of the team, and everything flows better when they are. So this is just personal preference. Hopefully the Lakers can find a way to get Luka off the ball a little bit more, maybe put him in situations to score off the catch a little bit more, score in spots a little bit more. Obviously still pick and roll, right? That's getting your bigs involved and stuff like that. But just you know, plug and play, move different pieces around. JJ Redick, for one thing that we know for certain, for him being a first-year head coach, he's a very intellectual offensive guy. You know what I'm saying? Like he knows how to get guys open. He knows how to create continuity in the offense. Lakers, you know, have struggled at times, but I think he's done a good job in that regard. So hopefully, again, just personal preference, we can get Luke off the ball a little bit more. Still going to be our primary ball handler. Still going to be, you know, our guy. This is still going to be the dude that we build around in the future. I think Austin Reeves will be great alongside him in the future, right? Luka's already been used to playing with great guards. I think AR is going to thrive. AR is used to playing with a ball-dominant guy in LeBron. He's been playing with the start of his career. So I think that'll be a great fit, and they should hang on to AR for sure, because it's only going to their chemistry as it clicks, right, it's going to be tough to guard. And they're similar guys, right, move at their own pace. It's going to be really interesting to watch, which is a lot of fun. So let's move on. So we talked about the financial implications. We talked about you know, the new CBA, how all that stuff affects Dallas. One thing I didn't mention was how good will Dallas's defense become with AD on that team? they got some good defenders on that squad, right? And you plug Anthony Davis in there, you will let him. I'm very interested. I should have touched on this earlier, but I'm very interested to see because so let's talk about this from both perspectives. Neither star knew this was going to happen. AD was blindsided by it. Luka Dončić was blindsided by it. I am very interested to see what kind of mindset each of these guys come out with, because if they are fired up by this, it's going to be scary for the league on both sides, right? You got AD being able to transition back to the 4 spot, still be an elite defender, right? Still help with rim protection duties, but he's going to be fresher. He's not guarding, you know, these, you know, huge dudes night in and night out, right? So I really think this is even though AD didn't want to leave the Lakers, he was a loyal Laker. He was awesome, right? Like, love him. Honestly, he may need his jersey retired one day for all that he did for us, bringing us a championship, right? Being our guy. He should have a Defensive Player of the Year award under the Lakers banner. So, but like, I know how each guy feels mentally, but in a roundabout way, this trade pretty much gave everybody what they wanted, right? AD gets to go back to the 4. He gets to play at the 4. He's going to be elite at the 4. It's going to take a little bit of pressure off his body, maybe lengthen his career a little bit more, lengthen his ability to play at a high level for a little bit longer. And he's going to really help Dallas's defense. Again, I can't reiterate that enough. He's going to really help Dallas's defense. Guy being able to switch 1 through 5. You can play him at the 5. You got two really good 5s in Gafford and Lively when Lively comes back from his injury. like it's a good roster. Now again, the window's not going to be as big because AD is 31, so you think, when bigs start to age, they tend to have a harder time sometimes than guards at creating that longevity. But you get AD being productive until 34, 35. If at some point along that route they're able to sign another star who's a little bit younger, who can do some different things, that's only going to lengthen AD's career. Because AD is one guy who I think, if he manages to stay healthy, can play for a long time because he's just so versatile. So AD, when he's 35, maybe his athleticism starts to go a little bit. He's so smart, he's still going to be able to be a really good defender, right? He's still going to, he's going to be in the right spot at the right time all the time. He can still stretch the defense a little bit, shoot the long ball. He can handle the rock a little bit. There's so many different areas you can put AD in that if he's able to stay healthy, he can actually play good for a long time. But at some point, Dallas will probably have to assign another star because, Kyrie's 33, etc. So they're going to need another piece. But if they can get one, I could see AD playing well for them, and just kind of, his role slowly, depreciating, I guess, if you will, but always finding ways to really help that team. So you could see AD playing at a pretty high level for, maybe the next 5, maybe 6 years. Again, that's, who knows, right? That's yet to be seen, but definitely for the next 3 years, you guys get a pretty good Anthony Davis. And on the Lakers side of things, Luka's going to be fired up. Luka didn't know about this either. He was getting ready to sign that max extension in the summer. Him being traded eliminated him from eligibility. What I foresee happening is, well, first and foremost, I think that's going to fire him up. Luka Dončić is an a-hole, and he's a competitor. So him getting traded, you wait till he's going to have Dallas circled 30 times on his calendar, and he's going to know when that date's approaching because he's going to be ready to light them boys up. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's that type of guy. So whether it be this year or early next year, whenever he's able to come back healthy, he's going to be on a vengeance tour. You know what I'm saying? He's going to come out and kill. Hopefully, this does inspire him to probably get in better shape, because I do think he could be leaner. I do think him being lighter probably helps eliminate some of those soft tissue injuries that he's accumulated over the past 2 seasons that have kept him off the floor, for certain stints. And it probably honestly just helps him feel better, right? Like, I'm sure you guys have seen the clips. Luka, first 2 years in the NBA, driving, beating guys off the dribble, dunking on dudes. Like, you don't see that too much anymore. And he's only 25, right? Like, 25 should still be your athletic peak, right? Your prime and your athletic prime can be 2 different things. You know what I'm saying? Like, Kobe from 28 to 30, 31, let's say, was in his prime probably, but it wasn't necessarily his athletic prime, right? And you could go down the list and name multiple players for that. But Luka being 25 should still be in his athletic prime, and he's not. Looks like he loves to eat. Dallas, I've heard the food scene is incredible, so I get it, but that's something that maybe he'll be inspired to work through. And if he is, hopefully it can limit some of the injuries that he's taken on, those soft tissue injuries, because those soft tissue injuries are really annoying. You know what I'm saying? Because they can, you start to, say you sprain an ankle, you start to develop imbalances in other places because you're overcompensating. Your movement starts to overcompensate in other areas, start to put more pressure on one leg than the other. And that's a lot of times when, the more drastic injuries start to happen. So if he could, lean out a little bit, stay strong. He's always going to be strong. I mean, he's 6'8", even if him slim is probably 230, 240. So, he's always going to be solid. But just, stay leaner and stay out there on the court longer. I think, the sky's the limit for him. And he's a guy who, he should be, the Lakers' future for the next, again, 8 to 10 years. That guy he's a generational guy. So it'll be fun to watch. Now, this last piece before I let you guys go is going to be a fun one. I just wanted to talk through some conspiracy theories that I had and that I was seeing online and stuff like that, because people were saying all types of stuff. Dallas fans absolutely hated the trade. I think they still hate the trade. It's going to be a while for them to get over it. But, you know, AD is he's a generational guy too. You know what I'm saying? AD is one of them ones. You know what I'm saying? So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But let's talk about it. Let's see what are some things that I heard being talked about. There's one in particular, and you know, let me backtrack a little bit. You know what's funny? So my family is so, like, we live, breathe, and bleed basketball. My uncle, this trade happened at like 10:30 last night where I'm at. We're all just start texting in the group chat. We're like blindsided by it, right? You get like 30 messages, you know, before I see my phone, and I see it, I open it up, and like, I gotta go check Twitter, all this sort of stuff. I'm getting phone calls at midnight. Shout out to my uncle, because we were all just like, what does this mean? Is this real? Is this thing going to get vetoed like Chris Paul did to the Lakers back in the day, right? It's just such a blindside. So that's just to give you guys some insight into my family. I thought that was funny. But anyways, back to the conspiracy theory. So I know there's a lot of vetting that goes on when these sorts of trades happen, right? Vetting in terms of a player's health. You got to go through your medicals. You got to, you know, make waivers, clear all these things. But like, what's keeping me skeptical and a little bit weary of this trade is that Dallas has had Luka on the team for 7 years now, I believe. They know Luka Dončić better than any other franchise does, right? Like, they have the inside knowledge, right? The intimate details. And it really starts to fester when you think about that in you, and you're like, what could have went wrong to make them want to trade their 25-year-old all-star who's the best offensive player in the NBA? And if you're looking at this objectively, he is the best. When healthy, I think he is the best offensive player in the NBA. You could argue Joker. I think Joker is a better basketball player than him. I think he does more of the little things. I think he gets his teammates involved at the right times. He probably elevates his teammates a little bit more than Luka does, right, etc. But in terms of just like offensive skill set, offensive dominance, ability to get a shot off on anybody, right, like the intricate details of offense, like, I think Luka is the best offensive player of this generation, probably, right, of, you know, since he's came into the NBA. So I say that to say, like, Dallas has the intimate details. What does Dallas know that nobody else knows, right? And I'm pretty sure there's things in these trades that need to be included, and I'm sure the Lakers did their due diligence to figure out why Dallas would trade a guy like Luka, because on the surface it just doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? 25 for 31, best offensive player of his generation, the better basketball player of the two, your franchise cornerstone, one of the biggest stars in the NBA, right? Whether or not he's the biggest name in the US, I assure you, if you cross the ocean and if you go to Europe, he's one of the biggest names you will ever talk about, you know, in that region, you know what I'm saying, on that continent. So one of the biggest stars in the NBA, without a doubt. You trade him, you know what I'm saying, a guy who is seen to be as untouchable. It makes you think, right? It's kind of an unnerving feeling. Like, what could be going on there? Is Luka just is he a shitty locker room guy? Is he a cancer to teams' chemistries? I don't think that's true, right? Like, you don't necessarily get to NBA championships with cancers in your locker room. Did he say something to somebody? Did him and J Kidd just, you know, butt heads one too many times, right? I know there have been small reports over the past couple of years with his extension looming of just like differences in opinions and stuff like that, and him maybe not necessarily agreeing with the front office on different scenarios. But regardless of all that, right, historically, every team in the NBA is signing this guy to an extension, and they're rocking with their franchise player. And if you go to other sports, if you go to the NFL, right, and you look at quarterbacks in these same situations, these NFL teams are riding with their quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, this is such a strange dynamic that I can't quite find a comparable thing to, right? Like a comparable trade to, or scenario to that this is very unique. So it makes one think, does he have like a degenerative knee issue, like God forbid, Kawhi did, that no one knows about, or you know what I'm saying? Now I don't think that would be legal to do, but it's like it has to be something. It has to be something. Like, can he just not put the cheeseburgers down? Is he eating barbecue every night in Dallas? Does he have the Zion Williamson in him? You know what I'm saying? Is he struggling to keep the weight down that bad, right? Or is he, sometimes I'll see him compete, and like you see the bickering with the refs, right? And as good of a player as he is, it gets exhausting seeing after every play, throwing your hands up, the theatrics, the bickering, the crying, right? He does have some of that in him, and it makes, and anytime a trade like this happens, it almost makes you like double back to that, and well, is that worse than, right? Like if he's acting like that there, how does it look behind the scenes and stuff? And it makes you probably draw on things that aren't necessarily reality, but I think it's just our nature to ask questions, make assumptions, and just based on what we're given, because the reality is we're probably never going to have all the facts. So I'm just trying to piece things together, right? And it's fun to play conspiracy theorist at times. So yeah, I don't know if it's, I don't think it's any of these things, but just some things that have been rolled through my mind, right? Like some gut turning stuff, just something doesn't feel right. You know what I'm saying? Just something doesn't feel right. Is it a Luka injury that they don't know about? Again, I don't think it's, you can do that as an NBA team and not express, medical facts and details like that. I think that would be a not in good faith thing that would probably end up penalizing the Mavericks for if they could prove it. So I don't think they would go to that route. Is Luka that much of an asshole, right? That's another question. Is he just that much of an asshole and a drain on the front office and his teammates that they're like, good riddance? You got to be a pretty big asshole. Because let's be honest, there have been some assholes in the NBA. We're currently seeing some assholisms going on in this trade market. You know what I'm saying? Between the Heat, we've seen some in the past. And this isn't necessarily all on the players. I don't want to make it seem like, Jimmy Butler is just, the worst guy in the world. Or even if you look back to what happened with James Harden in Philly a couple years ago, right? Like, Philly's GM told him he was going to get his money, and he didn't get his money. He had every right to act the way that he did. But, what I'm saying? You've just seen these scenarios before. So is it like, is Luka at 25 being a generational player, the best offensive player in the NBA? Is he that much of an asshole to make you want to trade him? I feel like that'd be a bad business practice. You know what I'm saying? You kind of just want to deal with the asshole in that scenario. Or, like I mentioned at the top of my video, does it just come down to money? When I look at this from a practical perspective, right, and I'm trying to be realistic, what makes the most sense to me is this is a new ownership group who has just spent an arm and a leg on acquiring this new franchise that they're trying to grow even more, right? They got these new TV deals on the horizon. They got new rules and regulations being put in place. They're trying to develop real estate in and around their city to help maximize profits in a given area. But you got expenses on the back end that they're probably trying to bring down, right? You're trying to bring down expenses so you can, break even as soon as possible and begin to make money, right? You know what I'm saying, right? So a lot of me thinks it's a money thing. A lot of me thinks that Luka Dončić is making $345 million with the new CBA and cap, regulations that they now have on NBA teams. For a team like Dallas, it's not, it's like a mid-sized market, but it's by no means a large market. Just would be hard on them, with already the investment that they've made. They're probably kind of like, we don't know about 345. We can do 175 on the books for the next 3 to 4 years, but 345, that's a big ask, right? We can do like put it like this. We can do 175. I think that's what AD is owed. They said for the next 3 or 4 years. So we could do 175 when this is from completely a business perspective. completely a business perspective. This is not from a trying to just yeah, let me say that again. This is completely a business perspective. I'm removing the basketball perspective, right? So what ownership sees, right? We have a guy who we could pay 175 over the next 4 years. We have a guy who we're going to have to pay 345 over the next 5 or 6 years. Probably close to 400 because I think his extension wouldn't start until after next year. So we have a guy we could pay 400 million over the next 6 years. We have a guy we could pay 175 over the next 4 years. We believe that we're going to win roughly the same amount of games with AD as our best player as if we had Luka Dončić as our best player. We might as well save the money we just took on this large investment that we have to continue investing in order to maximize our profits. Let's try and save where we can, which is in that cost sheet on the player. So that's my most likely culprit. Again, who knows? Maybe more information will come out down the road. I have a hard time believing Dallas made this move solely with winning in mind. I don't believe that to be the case. I think when these business entities get into buying teams, it's not always because they're trying to. It's not always. Let's be honest. It's not because the love of the game. It's for the money. So with that being said, money tends to drive their decisions. And typically, the reason why the NBA has grown so much and has had so much success is because winning and money tend to go hand in hand, right? You look at the Warriors over the past 10 to 12 years, a franchise that historically had not won, started winning. Now they are one of the most expensive franchises in the league, one of the most successful franchises in the league, right? Because, they created the dynasty, and that dynasty led to millions and millions of new fans, led to billions and billions of more dollars, etc. You get the picture. So in Dallas's case, though, I guess they don't feel like that's the case, and they want to. They're okay with continuing to be a competitive team and not necessarily maybe striving for a championship. Who knows? But that's my thoughts. I'm sure more will come out in the coming days. I'm excited to learn more. I'm excited to talk more. The trade deadline ends on Thursday, so I'm hoping that the Lakers are able to make another move. I know I'm hearing reports that they're still pushing for a center. They still have a number one pick on their books, right? They still have Dalton Connect, so they can still make a move for a center. You know what I'm saying? And I hope they can do that, because if they do get a legitimate center who can run rims, who can be that pick and roll guy for Luka, run to the rim, catch lobs, that sort of thing, then I do think the Lakers could be competitive still this year. I think that chemistry would have a long way to go, but LeBron is a real professional. Luka, he's played European ball, transitioned to NBA ball, back to European ball, right? He pretty much plays for his country every summer. Like, I don't think that this transition is going to bother him too much either. More so for our glue guys, I think, is where we really need to develop that chemistry. So we shall see. Sky's the limit, man. As a Lakers fan, it's exciting. It's bittersweet because AD was that dude, man, and I think he didn't get the love that he should have gotten over his tenure on the Lakers. Hopefully he goes to Dallas, balls out. I hope. I'm a fan of Dallas. You know what I'm saying? Kyrie and Luka, that dynamic was amazing. I'm hopeful that AD and Kyrie can really just play well over the next 3 or so years, win a lot of ball games, be competitive, compete for maybe not championships, right? Because I'm a Lakers fan, I don't want to see them win more than us. But what I'm saying, compete in the playoffs, have some good runs, do that sort of thing, and let the chips fall where they may. Both of those guys are Hall of Famers either way. AD, top 75 all time without a doubt. Hopefully he can. I don't know how it works with trades and NBA awards, but like AD had us significantly better. AD has made the Lakers a significantly better basketball team, especially defensively, as they would have been without him. If he goes to Dallas, and let's say they're right now, I think they're like the 8th seed, and by the end of the season they're like a 5 seed. I know Vic is, defensive player of the year, narrative driven thing, and he's number 1 right now. They're probably not going to make the play-in, and he should not be defensive player of the year if they don't make the play-in. Let's be honest. Winning needs to matter in these awards, at least to some extent. If AD is able to drive their winning up, get them to out of the play-in, a competitive team, you know, good seeding. Give that man his due. He's one of the best defenders. He might be the best defender of this generation, even though he's not credited the way he should be. And he wasn't, like, just the way timelines work, his team wasn't necessarily winning as enough when, like, Kawhi was winning Defensive Player of the Years, when Draymond was winning Defensive Player of the Years, right? To get those awards over them. But I would probably say AD a shade better than both of those guys defensively at his peak. Close, hard to say. Close. Kawhi on ball defense is a different animal. Let's say help defense. Like AD's right there. If he's not better, it's like 1A, 1B, 1C, right? Like they're all interchangeable depending on what you're looking for. It's very close. So it'd be nice to see him get his due for the level of defense he plays and the effort he puts in on that side of the floor. So if he can drive their winning up and start to get them to be a real competitive team in the West again, hopefully they acknowledge that. Again, I don't know how it works being traded, playing for two different teams, but if anybody would deserve it, it'd be AD. So hope you guys enjoyed the content. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I went long today, but there was a lot to talk about. I wanted to make sure I got it all out. I covered all the bases, talked about it from each perspective. It's such a unique circumstance that we just have never seen before. So it'll be interesting. I'm really excited to see what happens the next 4 days before the trade deadlines end, because I think there's still some moves to be made. I think the Lakers will still really push to find a center if they can, and hopefully they can. So remember, if you like the content, make sure to like and subscribe. If you have a question, leave a comment. If you like the content, leave a comment. Engage with the video. That is all I ask. I'm really looking forward to continuing to make these videos. I'm just a guy who played basketball growing up, played competitively, played at a pretty high level, and I love to talk about basketball, right? I was thinking about this recently that, you know, basketball was my passion for a long time. I've looked to find new passions in my life. Nothing hits the same. There's something unique about basketball and something that's so special to my heart. So I'm gonna continue talking about it because it's what I enjoy. Again, if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to engage with the video, like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.